Hi guys, this is Hero. How's everyone doing today? Ajabale Kemcho, Aj Sub Kesoho. So today I'm going over why we ignore red flags in people, right? Now you can apply this for just your intimate relationships, you can apply this for your friendships, you can apply it to both. It's gonna apply to everything. Obviously, it's gonna apply the most for your like romantic choices as they kind of impact your ego the most for the most part. Okay. First and most obvious one, these people that who we are ignoring the red flags, they overpower us from a material level. Okay, they're either way better looking than you, they make way more money than you, they appear way more happier and emotionally satisfied than you, right? Because emotions, uh actual physical material things like looks or money or things like that, or any sort of mental status that they could have in the community, anything giving them some sort of material power, if they overpower us in some aspect, right, you could have a tendency to ignore the red flags, right? I'm going to kind of go over each of the points in more detail and root causes and prevention measures in a second, but let me just go through the list first. Next is that the ego does not want to believe it is being deceived, right? Everyone thinks that they know everything these days and that no one would dare do any harm to them, right? This is not true at all. Okay, I don't care who you are, somebody is probably lying to you uh, at some point. Okay, fear of the truth, internal or external. Okay, sometimes you don't want to recognize the red flag because it causes you to face a very scary truth that you might not want to face, right? And like if this person is betraying you somehow or something, or externally, right? Let's just say you're not afraid of the actual internal betrayal, but it's like, oh man, like this person betrayed me, so now I have to get a divorce, and now I don't want to accept that because everybody's gonna, have some shame upon me or laugh at me or whatever, right? Next is you're thinking too far ahead about how this person can give you something, right? This person has a lot of money or they're good looking or something like that. You come up with all these imaginary scenarios. And this one kind of ties in a little bit here, right? But this is the most obvious one where they like completely dominate and overpower your common sense and make you purely delusional, right? This one, it's like you're not necessarily delusional, but you're still ignoring them because of some hope that you can kind of extract something from this person, right? Like they have a lot of money or whatever, or they're like a good looking friend, and then you hanging around this person could maybe attract more attractive people of the opposite sex if like this person is more attractive than you, right? Because it kind of like balances out both of your guys' attractiveness level in like a group of the opposite sex, right? And I'll expand more upon that in a second. Next is fear of change, outcome. Okay, this outcome does not mean like here where I talked about the divorce. What I mean by outcome here, fear of change, is that sometimes you are just used to dealing with red flags, right? So if you were to not deal with them anymore, it's like, yeah, there's an actual external result, right? The like what's gonna happen. But then there's also like a change. Like you have to adjust the way you possibly do things, right? Like you have to kind of transform into a whole new person if you're gonna kind of recognize and call out red flags if you're used to ignoring them or like staying silent about them or whatever, kind of brushing them aside mentally. Next is you're just used to red flags, various root causes, right? Some people can come from like, they might not have had the healthiest relationship with their parents growing up or something like that, just in a toxic environment, right? Whatever the root cause is, you're just used to red flags all the time, right? Like it's just a part of your nature. Okay, so and this is a little different than here because this talks more about like a fear of change means a fear of who you are, right? This is just more of used to red flags why you're ignoring the situation in the first place, right? You're not even recognizing it. And that brings me to my next point, which is the subconscious and conscious balance. So ignoring it falls under more subconscious, right? While recognizing it but not doing anything about it falls under conscious. Now, all these points apply to both, right? Because for you to do something about it, it has to go from the subconscious to the conscious, and then you finally, it gets so overwhelming in the conscious that you have to do something about it. But the more you recognize these, the quicker and easier it is for you to stop ignoring red flags and for them to go from the subconscious to the conscious, to kind of start that ball rolling to where you can take care of things and, live a healthier, happier life, hopefully. Okay. The next one, why you ignore red flags. You kind of can like red flags possibly, and possibly also like the victim mindset, right? You enjoy, and I'm not saying this is all the time, but like one reason is like you could enjoy dealing with red flags and then complaining about, the red flags afterwards, right? Rather than you kind of like the turmoil and the ordeal that it brings, okay? The next is that overall your awareness is just plain low, right? Now, these are all stems, right, of your awareness being low, possibly, right? But, there could be other reasons outside of this just stemming from overall low awareness, right? So I'll go back and I'll kind of tie into each of these just a little bit deeper, okay? The first one, especially the star points, two at the top. Overpower us from a material level. Okay, if anybody has ever dealt with someone that is way out of your league attractiveness-wise, right? This is the most obvious because this has to do with the actual physical attractiveness of a person. It's like I'm assuming of the opposite sex. And as you guys know, the chakras, your physical chakra is actually the one at the base, right? This is the one that controls your complete primal nature, and you could say your subconscious, right? I'll continue. So, for example, a lot of the times attractiveness, there are elements that are a little bit more conscious, but for the most part, what makes a person attractive or not, it's not really something that you can think about or rewire, right? It's just something that you kind of could just feel attracted to someone, right? And like I said, there are certain levels that you can kind of tell yourself or try to tell yourself that you're not attracted to this or you are attracted to this, right? But for the most part, it's kind of hardwired in, right? So at like an ego level. So for example, if somebody is just super duper attractive, right? Like let's just say like at least a good 2 to 3 points above whatever you are on a scale of 1 to 10. Most likely, this is where it's going to start causing you to become delusional about, who this person is and things like that, right? Any sort of relationship or possible connection that you have with this person, possible interaction, right? Your brain is just going to not be able to process that. Your mind, your ego is not going to be able to interpret that situation groundedly, okay? Until you calm down a little bit. But at the beginning, it could overpower you, right? And this will cause you to ignore any red flags, right? And it'll make your mind a little bit more vulnerable, and all kinds of disaster can happen from there, right? Now, there are ways that you can be more grounded and things like that, which I've talked about many, many times in my videos about detachment and things like that, where yes, you still recognize that somebody is extremely attractive, for example, but you're dealing with it in a grounded way, right? You're not fighting the fact that, you think they're real hot or whatever, right? That's never going to go anywhere, right? I don't care if you're a monk or whatever, right? But you just hopefully dealing with the situation as grounded as possible, right? That's all we can do here. Next, that the ego doesn't want to believe it's being deceived, right? Especially if you're a little bit more younger and naive, right? You think that, everyone is just possibly, the world revolves around you, right? And that is not true at all, right? And your ego thinks that, oh, no one would do this to me, right? I've heard of this, people lying to other people and blah, 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 but no one would do this to me, right? Because your ego has this extreme inflated and deflated value of itself, right? It lives in extremes. So part of the extreme on the inflated part is that, oh, I'm so good, no one would possibly do me any wrong, right? In certain senses, okay? So if it doesn't want to believe it, in that you have that high sense of pride, again, it's going to affect your ability to groundedly interpret situations, and you could miss some red flags from people, okay? Next is fear of the truth, internal or external, right? So I already kind of discussed this about, like, let's just say this red flag means a certain conclusion, right? Like, you know, if you're picking up a red flag, like, let's just say your partner has betrayed you somehow, lied to you, cheated on you, whatever, right? There's all sorts of internal and external stuff that you're all of a sudden going to have to deal with, right? And you might not want to deal with it, so it's just kind of easier to look the other way, okay? But I would encourage you to ground yourself and possibly open yourself up to a possible truth here and to just accept it, right? Just because you accept, and it doesn't mean that, you know, this thing may have necessarily happened or whatever, right? But you're just kind of accepting the truth. So you're no longer living out of fear, right? Who wants to live out of fear? No one, right? Fear is the root of anxiety, which I made other videos on how to lower your anxiety and not live out of fear, right? And to just accept all the things that you're afraid of, okay? Next is thinking too far about how this person can give you something, right? So this kind of ties in, let's just say, with the good looks thing, right? This person can give you all sorts of attention from your own friends, right? If you're dating somebody attractive or something like that. But sometimes, you know, it doesn't have to be one of those obvious situations where, you know, where someone's just so good looking, they just make you completely delusional or something like that, right? It could just be like a little delusional, okay? Or like a little bit like, oh man, like what was I thinking? Where they might have some real nice car or something like that, and you're trying to like do something like impress somebody or something like that, or just, I don't know, experience some few things with their money that you wouldn't be able to do with your own, for example, right? I'm just giving you a few things. So you're thinking too far ahead about what this person, something that this person can give you, right? So you go ahead and just ignore the red flags because you're too caught up in that experience or possession or whatever, right? Another thing here is that when I said overpowers from a material level, so this could also include emotions, right? A lot of us don't think of emotions as material, but they are, right? They are temporary things that come and go, right? Yes, it is inside, just like our thoughts, but it is still, when I mean material, I mean like an ego level, something that our ego can hold on to and have illusionary value, right? So for example, like a car or something like that, or good looks, I mean, it's not forever, right? But it's something that the ego can hold on to, right? This applies the same thing for certain thoughts or emotions or things like that. The ego can hold on to them and try to ride them out as long as it can, right? It's a similar situation, right? If somebody's giving you the illusion or the presentation that they can give you happiness, or they can, they're so happy themselves, which therefore I guess could make you more happy, right? This is also how they could, one way they could possibly overpower you, right? If you're kind of sad all the time and they're real happy, or give you the illusion that they can make you happy, right? This is also how they can overpower us here, right? I forget where I left off. I think I'm on here, right? Yeah. Fear of change, right? Outcome. So usually, if you're ignoring red flags, right, you are a certain type of person, or there are certain types of mental and physical patterns that you have living your life, kind of maneuvering around the red flags, right? So if you're becoming more conscious of it, you're going to have to change the way you do things, right? Especially if you speak up about it, right? It's just so conscious that you can't do anything about it. All right, so this is going to cause some fear of change, right? You're probably going to transform into a whole new person, right? So rather than do that, hey, let's just ignore all the stuff that we don't want to do, right? But I mean, that's not ideal, but this is why you would possibly ignore something, right? If you're just, for example, real used to just getting run over and being real quiet in relationships and stuff like that, this would be a huge fear, right? And another thing is why you can ignore it, you're just used to red flags, right? I gave the example of a broken home before, right? But there's various root causes here, right? If you're just used to, you know, a lot of the times Indians, they have certain behaviors, right? Like some, for example, are just real loud. Some are real quiet, right? It depends on, for example, what kind of household they grew up in, right? And you can see people different people from different backgrounds. Also, just based off of, I'm just giving the example of how they grew up, right? But it could be any sort of factor that affected them along the way, right? If you're somehow used to something, right? If your first a few relationships in high school or something like that, you were always yelling with people, right? Like it was just, you're possibly going to be used to that, right? You're going to want a relationship where you're always yelling back and forth with each other, right? So you would possibly ignore red flags to accomplish that, very subconscious need, urge, or desire for that inside you, right? I talked about the subconscious conscious balance. Just remember, the more you do this, the more conscious you get, and the more conscious you get, usually it's just a matter of time before it takes care of itself, right? This is why awareness and consciousness is key, right? And how you can do this, there's a lot of stuff you can do: meditation, yoga, breathing exercises. I talk about it all. Another thing, you like red flags and the victim mindset. Okay, I made a video specifically on victim mindset and how you can overcome it. But just recognize that this is normal to an extent. So don't think like, oh, you're a bad person if you like victim mindset. It's not like that. There's a lot of people that like the victim mindset at some level. It's just how much we, possibly attach to this mindset that we need to be cognizant of, right? And then overall, if your awareness is low, more you increase your awareness, you become more conscious, things like that. You'll start to take care of this, all right? But that's it for this video. If you have any questions or comments, as usual, you can let me know. And until next time, I will talk to everyone later. Thank you all very, very much for watching.